Welcome back to the Apprentice One-to-One podcast. This is a continuation of the special series we're doing on inspection and testing. And I'm joined tonight again by Ricky. He's come on. We've got the two sensible geezers from the old EGTE crew. So we were the technical brains behind it all and the looks. If we're honest, we held it all together, and definitely the most interesting, I would say. Rick, what do you reckon?
Mate, come on. Let's be honest. We know the score, don't we? We know the score. We don't need to go any further than that.
Yeah, that is true. How are you anyway, mate?
Yeah. All good, mate. Yourself?
I can't complain. It's been a busy week with everything that's been going on, trying to edit these podcasts together. You'll know what that's all like yourself.
Nightmarish, mate. Nightmarish. Yeah. It used to drive me mad editing podcasts. So every hour takes about 3 hours of editing, didn't it? And that's bad editing as well. That's bad. Like, you get someone that knows what they're doing, it takes even longer.
You can see why people make a career out of it, can't you, really? To be honest, it is a skill in itself, I think, some of that lot. And I'm terrible at it. I'm still got a lot to learn. But yeah, busy away with all of that. And you've been busy with a bit of that yourself in the day job as well, haven't you, this last week with the apprenticeship video in for Morgan Sindel. I think you can talk about that a little bit if you're allowed.
Well, it's not released yet, obviously. By the time this goes out, hopefully it is. Obviously a big company, lots of hurdles to overcome. But yeah, it was more, they wanted to do something for Apprenticeship Week, tight deadlines, so they wanted to get something out. Obviously, mental health and safety, they weren't happy, had to reshoot some stuff. But yeah, it's just, we've got a guy called Dan. It's a really good story because he started at the same time as me, so he's 25, got a family like I had. You know what I mean? Worked in the call centre at Morgan Sindel for 3 years. So he's now just come over. He said he wanted to do an electrical apprenticeship about six months ago, I think. And me and the other QS really pushed him. Just keep asking, man, keep asking. And eventually it happened. I'm obviously taking a bit of a pay cut to start doing it. But, it's going to be really good for him.
Yeah.
They picked up, they're doing like a little sort of minute 20 video. And I think it just helps, when it's like when you're filming this stuff, you get to know little bits of terminology like B-roll. What's B-roll? And you pick up these little things. So when they're talking, I think it helped them to go, can we get a B-roll shot of him walking to the van and pan around? And I knew half what I was talking about. So I think that helped me. But yeah, as you know, like I say, with these things, we've shot it once and health and safety weren't happy with certain things and then it had to be reshot again. And apart from that, hopefully that comes out tomorrow. And I'll share it away. Tomorrow being what we on now is Tuesday, Wednesday the 10th tomorrow. Is it the 10th? It is,
tomorrow? Yeah. Don't start me on days. I got mixed up with that last episode coming out today. I didn't think that was till tomorrow. I've been getting all mixed up. It's crazy, and it's COVID times. No one knows what bloody day it is anymore.
That's true. Plus, when you're editing stuff, you've got recording dates and release dates, and the world starts merging, and you lose track.
You can easily do that. I certainly have been recently. So, I mean, you've had quite an involvement with a few apprentices because I've seen you in your van with a few guys when you've popped little pictures up on social media. Is that something that you've done for a few years now? I mean, I know from speaking with you that you've been involved with apprentices for a bit.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed training people up anyway. So throughout my career, even when I was sort of self-employed, there was a gang of us and I'd always help the improvers to improve, funnily enough, and I don't know why they call them improvers. Never got that terminology, but mates or labourers, apprentices, whatever you want to call them. And I think I've got quite a knack for knowing people that are going to progress and ain't, people that have got the right attitude.
Yeah.
And, I'm quite a hard, horrible bastard at times, but I've got a big heart, what I mean? So I can come across the wrong way. I don't tolerate bollocks easily. If you're going to work with me, you're going to do it right. And I'll look after you if you do and teach you, but there are certain rules. You want to stand there on your phone. That's not going to work for me. And my only rule, I think, is, and I think this is good advice for anyone that's training an apprentice, and for apprentices as well, you've got to ask questions. I'm the guy that will tell you how to do something once, and that's all you're getting from me. I'm not going to explain it twice. You can ask me as many things as you want. I've explained you how to do something. Ask any questions. But if you come and ask me how to do the job again, that's a problem to me because you ain't listened the first time, or you ain't listened to me say, ask questions, ask anything you want. I feel a lot of people suffer that when they're training apprentices. I think they get fed up with the questions, and That's the
You don't
right
know
way to
what you
be.
don't know, do you? I mean, that's exactly it. You've got to have an open mind to people asking you stuff. And as long as they're taking
Yeah,
it on board, like you said, and paying attention and actually showing that they're listening and learning, you don't mind helping people, do you? It's
that's
when it
it, mate.
becomes
Yeah,
repetitive and you're kind of having to explain everything over and over, it shows a lack of effort maybe on their part as well. So it's a two-way street, isn't it, with these things?
it is, mate. Yeah, but obviously now I've stepped up into the qualifying supervisor role at Morgan Sindall, albeit part time at the moment. As we discussed before, which is I'm not going to go into that today, but it's sort of the other side of it now. So we've got 3 apprentices, which we're trying to shuffle. Ain't been the easiest at times because the engineers don't want other people in their vans because of COVID. Fair enough. So trying to match them up and then do them so they're going on different contracts, working with different people, as well as keeping an eye on their college. Obviously, we work in domestic, so we're going to have to look into shipping them out to a different company or a different part of Morgan Sindall, seeing how that works out. So, it's different challenges now because it's not just one-on-one. Now we're dealing with 3 personalities, as well as personality of 10 different engineers in terms of who do we stick them with, at different years as well, because obviously a year 1 apprentice to a year 2 is so vastly different.
Of course it is,
With the questions you're getting. I was actually speaking to our year 2 apprentice, Jamie, which you would have seen on Instagram. Jamie, got a bigger beard than me.
Yes, he's got an
10 years
impressive
younger, the
beard.
boy. He has got an impressive beard. He's got an impressive many things, but we'll keep it to the beard today. You go on his Instagram, you see all these muscle shots, and he works out, the boy. But he got a bit bogged down the other day, and he's going, I'm just not getting it. I don't get things. It's blowing my mind a bit. I said, that's you're going through the transition now. You're starting to think like an electrician, and it does blow your mind at first, doesn't it? Because all of a sudden, it's not brown in live and blue in neutral. Now you start to think about things and how things work, and it's so confusing. I think you probably go for a 6-month transition before you start thinking like an electrician. Completely normal stage to go through, I think. But
No, you were so right. It definitely is. You get to that stage, don't you, when you just kind of start doubting yourself. But it is that just that like little 6-month window, like you said, you just got to press through.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, he's suffering as well because they're doing. I mean, I say suffering from what I've seen. A lot of people ain't even getting that, but he's doing remote learning. So he hasn't been in college for a long time, but he does remote learning once a week. But they've dumped a load of assignments on him. I think he's got 3 to do.
Yeah.
And he's suffering a bit with it, He is lucky in the fact that he works with Morgan Sindall and he's got myself and the other QS that both done apprenticeships, both understand what you need, and he can always come into the yard and spend a day doing college work. He's open like that, we get him everything he needs. So in that regard, it's a really good apprenticeship, and the company do support him, which is fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and like I've been hearing through Apprentice 1-to-1, that's not as common as it should be, unfortunately. I know they're doing some like adaptive learning where you can replace some of your modules at college with kind of write-ups from your employer as well. So I don't know if that's maybe an option for some people. If you've not looked into that and you're listening to this, it's on the City and Guilds website. So if you're having trouble getting your assignments done for college, there is a route to swap some of those out for a work-based assessment, but you'd have to pick that up with your local college and your employer as well. But yeah, it's good to hear that your company's making a big effort with it, Rick. That's nice to see.
Yeah, it is nice. And like I say, there's no company's perfect everywhere. I'm not going to say Morgan Sindall's perfect everywhere because it ain't. There's things like every company that ain't right. But apprenticeship-wise and developing careers-wise, they're fantastic. Like I say, they've taken a guy that worked at the call centre for 3 years, which is a huge asset to them in the call centre. A lot of companies would, how can we afford to lose you? And they've let him go and do an apprenticeship, which is fantastic. Obviously, I've been there for just over 12 months. I've moved up pretty quick into a QS role. And obviously been given my 18th edition training, which I never had, 2391. He's coming this year when we can actually book the course. So it's, developing your career. They're a really good company to work for.
Brilliant. Before we get into the discussion of topic on this one, I'd just kind of want to mention about what first got us together. I mean, it was kind of your interest in helping apprentices that we first spoke, I think, because, that was you wanting to get behind what I was doing with Apprentice 1-to-1 and, pressing it forward through your social media because no one knew who I was back then. And it's thanks to you guys that a lot of this is happening now. And, it is Team Apprentice 1-to-1 for me with everyone who's involved with these podcasts as well. And we've got some of the prizes donated from sponsors you put me in touch with. So the Ferret Wi-Fi's, for example, through Super Rod I only got talking with those people through yourselves, and I'm really grateful for it, and I know a lot of the apprentices are. And I know you lot guys don't want any of the credit or limelight for anything at all, but you deserve a lot because you really pushed this. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, no worries, mate. I mean, me, it's not about the limelight, just about the money, mate. So when it's just coming your way, sort me out.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Well, before we get onto that, so there was the Ferret Wi-Fi's on the last episode. We have got a little giveaway on this one as well, and this is through the Loadout shop, which is Residual Current. I'm sure you all know who he is. He's a big Instagram star, and he's got a couple of VDE hand tool kits together for us in Loadout branded cases. Draper hand tools, so we've got some snips. I'll pop a little picture up somewhere here because we don't have them to show you, but there's two of those to win, and we've been kind of racking our brains for some more questions that might get people thinking as well. Not too hard to put anyone off from wanting to enter, but not too easy that it's just a quick, I'm going to have 1,000 people to dig through. And Rick's come up with a suggestion. So what we're going to ask people on this one, Rick?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a different one. Renewable energy is what we're talking, and how many sources of renewable energy could you come up with? Obviously, without giving anything away.
There's only so much we can say with this.
Yeah. So I think we quickly come up with about 6 off the top of our heads just before we started recording, but I'm sure there's more. So obviously, I guess the more people name, the better. When we do get to the true maximum, decide between us.
Exactly. So get your comments in, and we'll have a dig through them for the people who are getting the most suggestions in there. And we've got 2 to give away. If there's more than 2 people, we'll do a little list on a spreadsheet and random draw a number or something. So get your comments in for that one. And cheers for the donation from Mike at Residual Current. It's nice of you to do that. Appreciated. And we'll dig on into the rest of the testing thing now. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight, mate, is the testing. And that's because Neil's not man enough to come on and chat about it because he doesn't know how to test. So he's left it to us 2 to get on with. I mean, testing's always the tricky one, isn't it? A lot of people just kind of dive in with the old test set, get a few ZS readings and bugger off. That tends to be what happens. But there is a process of testing that should be followed. And it starts at the beginning with a dead test, doesn't it?
That's right, mate. Absolutely. You ban on with testing. It's exactly the same as wiring a plug, isn't it? Anyone can put it on and get a reading. We could all do that. What does that reading mean? What does it mean when it's the wrong reading? What are you looking for? These are all questions. And the thing is with testing, some of David Savory's videos are pointing out, he done a really good video, I think, where we found the exact split in a ring by working out the lengths of cable for testing.
That was a brilliant video.
Which is, something, that would take me so long to do. It's a really good video, but it just goes to show you calculate everything in testing to find out what you need. But obviously, like you say, you start off with your dead testing for obvious reasons. There's a reason that you do your IR readings is the last of the dead tests, so you don't blast someone with 500 DC, But so first testing, it'd be ring mains, weren't it? End to end on ring mains. If you had a ring main, that's your first test.
Yeah. So you got your continuity, your conductors.
And to break into this, I think we need to say to apprentices that are new to testing, the sequence of tests is actually correct on the test sheet that you look at. So every test sheet you get, if you go left to right, it would tell you the sequence. It's so end to end ring main, R1, R2. Then R2, if you're doing that, not many people do. And I believe it's IR readings. And then polarity after that, I think. And then ZS, RCD, AFDD. RCD times, isn't it? Then the tick boxes. That's on the NRC sheet I'm thinking of.
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, and when you're doing AM2, it is just dead tests you do with that, isn't it? I think that when you're fault finding, because that's one of the things. Yeah, I know you have to do a full range of tests, but your fault finding, you're only allowed to dead test to determine what the faults are, which is how you should approach it anyway. I mean, we know in the real world you maybe wouldn't, but that is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest way to think about that is if you're going into a situation that you know absolutely nothing about, how you're going to do it. You're going to do it dead, in you. You only start doing different tests when you're confident that you know what it is. So, you go to it and you go, well, I'm pretty sure it's going to be that, so I'll do this test. If you've got no idea what the fault is, you're going to do it dead. Yeah. It's kind of that simple, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and again, with your dead tests, like you said, we're not going to go through the finest details of them, but if you've got guidance note 3, that has a real good explanation to it. And there is loads of content out there of people who've run through sequences of tests. But in basic terms, with your continuity and your R1, R2s, you're getting a resistance path between the line and the CPCs to make sure that they're intact, and that the values you're measuring based on the estimated length of the circuit or known length of the circuit are playing out as true. So you know that your terminations are sound and that the cable's been installed in a good way, because you never know if a plasterer's gone and driven a screw through it somewhere. It's quite a common occurrence, isn't it, mate? That happened to me more than once. Yeah. And that's, like you say, one of the reasons you don't want to start banging your IR test through it straight away, because, you know, you can make quite a bang sometimes and maybe potentially affect someone else in the property. So always approach the tests in the right and logical order. So when you're IR testing, I mean, that's one of the tests I always do. Say you go into a board change or something, one of the first things I'd do would be to do an IR test. Gives you a good indication of the condition of the wiring itself. How would you approach that? Would you be starting at 250 volts, or are you straight on at 500 volts and whack that through it and see what happens?
Yeah, so obviously if you're in a new build situation, it's 500 volts in it, you don't need to start 250. I don't think there should be anything connected. Anytime you're going into a house that's got potential loads, 250 every time. Because the IR reading was, once you start getting a funny reading, I had a brilliant example of this the other day when I'd gone to a job, lighting wasn't working, and I was there about 2 hours on my own, and it was only a 1-bedroom flat. There weren't that one lighting circuit. But I literally started, and I was, you know, when you get funny readings sometimes, and then as you start testing, that clears. Right, okay. So I got half the lights back on, and then I was testing, and I had a fault between the hallway light switch line. There was a fault, and the next leg out, which was to another hallway light. And then when I went back yesterday, I realised there was a smoke alarm attached to that, to the second leg, and I was like, oh, so it's giving me what I thought was a funny reading. Wasn't. I just didn't pick up on the smoke alarm because I was brain fuzzed from going through so many in the first place. But yeah, that was a weird tripping actually, because it was when you switched it on with no lights on, it'd be okay, and then the RCBR would trip after 5 seconds.
Really?
You wouldn't switch anything up. That's a strange situation to go into. So you're thinking, what the hell is? Obviously, you know, if you go around, you switch a light on, bang, switch light's gone. Happy days. When it comes on for 5 seconds and then goes, weird tripping. So we ended up we won a new legging.
Yeah, easy. Sometimes easy, isn't it?
Yeah, it was the R1, R2 was fine, and then when I'd done an IR test, live to neutral, it was dead short 0.
Yeah.
But yeah, there
missed
you go.
a mouse somewhere, maybe.
Yeah, but a concrete ceiling. That was the strange.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, it did have he had a lot of problem with water pen from the flat above. He had a lot of water coming through at one stage. So something's happened there at some point. Maybe something's come through with the water that started corroding the cable. I did try and pull the cable out, but it was solid. So there was no way of checking actually what was wrong with the cable, unfortunately. But I'd say we stuck a new switch line in.
Yeah.
No,
good stuff. And like some of the other tests as well where people get mixed up is how you actually approach doing a ZE test and then your prospective fault current test and the connection of earths in those. I mean, that's something that can catch apprentices out somewhere. It can catch electricians out as well, actually. Obviously, when you're doing a ZE, you need to make sure that your earth is isolated from all parallel paths. And if you're disconnecting the earth from the installation, obviously make sure the installation is turned off as well.
Helps.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds obvious, but lots of people sometimes don't bother doing that, and especially when they're doing a ZE measurement. I've seen people do it before, and you know, it makes you shake, but you know, it happens, doesn't it? That's what sparks are doing, unfortunately. Yeah. But yeah, so the earth's disconnected, and then when you're doing your prospective fault current, you need all of your parallel earth paths connected because could get a higher current flow in that scenario. So there's the two distinctions between the way you would approach testing those two different things. And then again, when you're moving on for your loop impedance testing, don't expect it to tally up with the maths of what your ZE and your R1, R2 is because of those parallel paths. That catches a lot of people out. I know with apprentices that have worked with me and they're looking at the test sheets and like, well, these numbers don't make sense to what it should calculate out as. And, you know, it doesn't always calculate out right because of the parallel paths, does it?
No, exactly. You know, you've never got constant voltage either. I think that's what a lot of people forget.
Yes.
You know, you've never, you know, in fact, I was on a job where the DNL came out recently, and they had a surge in the street, and he measured. I think he done 3 tests in about a minute and got 238 volt, 244, 251.
Wow.
So it's constantly moving. That's going to affect your testing.
Yeah, of course it is.
It's all that sort of stuff affects it. And it depends on your tester as well, because they say actually when you're doing your ZS tests, you need to check more than once. The newer testers do it about 10 times like a second or so. It's mental with it.
Yes.
You push that test button, and obviously picks up sand in the cables and all that sort of stuff, and changes for the harmonics and whatever. I'm not going to go too far because I'm going out of my depth there. But if you've got an older tester, it don't do all of that stuff, and you can get funny readings, and that's why you've got to know what you're looking at. Same as well. How many times do you stick a dodgy probe on? And you're like, wow, that seems high.
Yeah.
Hold on, I've null it again, and you know it. You get like 0.7 through your leads, and you've got a dodgy connection. You've got it's experience, isn't it? It's experience on these things. And like I say, anyone can do a test. Knowing what it is and knowing the cause is a completely different thing.
Yeah, you're dead right. And with a ZS test, the tolerances on between meters are quite large anyway. I forget what they are, but if you actually look, when you have your equipment calibrated, it's quite a wide range, isn't it? To be fair, especially on ZS. And like you said, if the voltage is adjusting, then you can't get the same fixed reading. I think is it Mega 1741s that have that confidence meter that tells you how confident the test set is on the ZS measurement. So I mean, even the manufacturers are realizing that these things aren't, absolutely cast in stone. And if you're measuring through RCDs, again, through experience, we'll know a particular brand of RCD will introduce a certain amount of impedance. They're all different. Some of them, you can get a really high amount of impedance, and some of them next to none. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's strange. And obviously we had all this problem, didn't we, last year with RCPOs and telling you you can't test it on ×5. You've got to do it. You've got to change this. It's mental. And from a tester's point of view, it was just ridiculous things to say that manufacturers were saying. Like you can't test it like that. You've got to test it like this. Well, then you've got a problem with your device, haven't you? Because that's not how the testing goes. And people that don't know the specific way to test your equipment are going to say it's faulty every time. I think I got sorted in the end, didn't it? But I can't remember who the manufacturer was at the time. But that's why it's also important to keep up to date. Again, going into a QS role, I'm doing this more and more of keeping up to date with the changes of manufacturers and doing, keeping up with the latest news, if you want. And that's no easy task. There's so much going on all the time.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, and it's like having your own business in a way, mate, isn't it? But the difference is, I think, obviously, when you got your own business, you stick to one brand typically, then you use that, and that's unfortunately that there's different subcontractors over the years use different brands. So we've got Schneider, MK, Wilex, and then AFDD start coming into it, and then you've got to keep up with that, and obviously that MK's becoming a bit of a nightmare now because they are, the Century line don't exist anymore, and the bits are starting to become a little bit more scarce. So keeping up to date with that sort of stuff is a bit nuts, to be fair.
Yeah, it is. I think it was Hager who had the issue with the testing of RCDs. I'm sure that I think it might still be a case with some of their products.
Really, and that's it's not good, is it?
They have to have a certain test current put through them to make them operate in the required time, which is kind of bending the rules to get the right reading, isn't it? If you actually think about it. But I mean, they say they're safe as long as you approach the testing that way. And like I say, I think the newer stuff does work in how we would traditionally test it. But yeah, I mean, the RCD testing is a good one. You can often, I found loads of RCDs in my career that don't operate, and sometimes that's the test that gets omitted by people because it's the last one in that list on the sheet, and you're just like, oh, I've spent enough time here already. It'll be all right. The test button works. But really, make sure you do that test. That's the one ultimately that could save someone's life. And if it's not switching off in the required time or even at all, then it's pointless being there. So make sure you are doing that RCD test on your trip times.
Yeah, I agree entirely when it comes to RCD. One of the most important tests. And also, when you stick it in a new RCD, you can't push that test button. You've got to test the RCD first, haven't you? Look at the sequence of tests. The button comes last. So before you push that button, you've got to do it. But often when you get a failed RCD, I find if you turn it on and push the button a couple of times, it does clear get rid of a bit of the stickiness that happens inside, you know, and you will get it working again.
Yeah, I remember when I was first in an apprentice, someone showing me about banging them on a worktop to get them back working again. And when you're at that stage, you just
I won't go that far.
We should probably be replacing it. Where are we stopping? And we're going to put it in the oven for half an hour. So it's like, I mean, there's a line, isn't there, in the sand?
Apart, you know, I mean, give it a toothbrush and put it back together, and yeah, it's ridiculous.
Crazy, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, thanks for coming on and chatting about the testing, mate, because, you know, it's not an easy subject, and there's only so much we can cover in like half hour, 40 minutes in fairness, but it's just to give the apprentices a bit of an idea of what it involves. And if you want to get into the whole technical side of it, you've got GSH, there's Joe Robinson, and the other YouTubers as well. If you go and look at some of the YouTube famous people who do ERCRs and testing, they've all got a video on there walking through it. There was a really good one Rick did, and hopefully there'll be another one from Rick soon, because you know, he does great videos around testing. I particularly enjoyed that one, so that'd be nice to see. No pressure, mate, but nice to see you do one of those again at some stage.
Maybe, man. I've got to apologise, Josh. As you know, my YouTube channel was one video a week, sweet, and then school home learning took over, and my laptop gets lost upstairs with my boy, and that's laziness, really. I can't be bothered to keep moving it all about and editing videos. But we discussed a new one coming, the old search engine, YouTube search engine. Well, we'll be done with it. If I give it away, it'll be done before I do it.
Exactly. I thought you were going to say it. Don't say it. This is coming out on Thursday. So no, yeah, it'd be nice to see some more of that stuff from yourself, mate, because they were brilliant videos when they were out on.
I appreciate it, mate.
So get them in, and thanks for giving up your time this week to come in and chat with me about this and all the help through the course of Apprentice 1-to-1. Quite where it's going in the future, who knows? But whatever it's doing, you'll be involved with it if you want to be, and. Get your entries in on the competitions. Just to remind everybody, there's the TIS MFT Pro, and the question for that one was in episode 1. You need to go and watch it, listen to it, and enter in the comments on there. And the last episode was for the Super Rod Ferret Wi-Fi's. Rick's got one of those, actually, I believe, haven't you, Rick?
Yeah, great bit of kit. The old Ferret Wi-Fi.
So we've got 2 of those on there, and again the question on episode 2, and the question Rick set tonight for the hand tools from the loadout shop is the renewable energy sources. So get your answers in the comments on this video. We'll do some sort of YouTube live or something at the weekend and start picking some winners for all of this. And thanks, Rick. Anything else you'd like to add before you go? Obviously, you're the Bearded Spark on YouTube and Instagram. I will drop it in the description of this video again. Anything you'd like to close out with, mate?
The success of me, mate, isn't it, really? No, listen, it's been a pleasure to come on, mate. Appreciate it. Obviously, great to be involved with Apprentice 1-to-1. I think the full circle has happened now, isn't it? Where I think he was last year, this pretty shy behind the camera. But, man, look at you now. It's amazing. I say it every time. It's just great to see, mate. It's great to see your development in it as well as the Apprentice 1-to-1 development. Yes, it's a real pleasure to be involved, mate. So thank you.
No, cheers, fella, and thank you for pushing me forward into doing it. I wouldn't be sat here doing it without your guys' help, so that's brilliant. And we'll close it out there. Catch you on episode 4, where it's going to be Neil and Sam, so it'll probably be really boring. Just skip it straight to the live and don't bother watching.
Advice now. Real world fault.
How did that socket fall off, mate?
Never, ever. The first thing you do is that whoever's told you what the fault is, ignore. That is the very first thing, because you will go down.
You've been doing it 4 years now, from day 1 to the AM2 assessment. Probably longer, but minimum, you're looking at 4 years. You're just doing what we've done every day.
Okay, I've not come prepared, and Mark's not given us any questions to work on, so I've got to go on the fly of it here. So I'm thinking
AM2 will be shower trips every time the isolator switch on, but they'll tell you that it's an RCD. So the RCD for the shower trips every time you switch the isolator.
It's your terms. We're talking about the statutory documents, which is Health and Safety at Work Act and Electricity Work Regulations.
Safe isolation. Put the key in your pocket. Instant foul. If you don't put it in your pocket, you leave it on top of the board where someone else can take.
So if I get my qualifications, can I please make sure I have your support going forward for the next 12 months in monitoring my work, having someone with me?
You've got a choice of testers. If your company's got a few different sets of testers, don't get familiar with one. Use different ones.
I'm not comfortable with. So pull yourself back. Don't go down that rabbit hole if you're going too far. Start deconstructing the installation too on there. There should be some educated guesses going on there across this issue. Get inside the employers, start talking to their employers and saying, look, there's a high chance I'm going to become qualified, but I don't deem myself competent.
An apprentice podcast.
Welcome back to the Apprentice 1-to-1 special podcast for Apprentice Week. Sam's jumped in here. He's going to talk us through the entire thing, and we'll have it nailed in 30 minutes flat.
I don't know. It just reinstates people's faith that people care about the industry. Giving away your tools to apprentices you've never even met is the real, very definition of caring about the industry, in my opinion. So, I don't know, mocking your accent. You used to sit there praying, but all you get is that.
Exactly.
All of us helps a tiny percent. We'd be a big portion to fixing the problem on a micro scale. As GSH, the Apprentice Hub as well, eFix Apprentice Hub. Stuff that's not on show, that's the most telling in my eyes.
Could you imagine if you won it? the Oprah.
We around with it like that.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, and it gets like dust on it in 5 seconds flat, and it doesn't work. It's rubbish.
I know. And you have to have an app, and then the app's like some Chinese thing all in hieroglyphs, and you're like, I don't know what this is doing. Takes 3 hours to connect it, even with a lead.
I wish I'd just bought the proper thing that actually worked, but it's too late now.
For this, I'm not heartless about it. I do sympathise with it, and I do have compassion for their plight.
She's getting in touch about mental health as well, which is something we're all struggling with. And if you want to go and check out Sam's podcast, he has a podcast specialising in mental health. We've talked about all these other people, GSH, and all the other places you can go and get support around electrical issues. If you want to go and delve into the depths of mental health, go and check out Fat Sam's podcast. There is already a raft of guests on there who've come and spoke about their experiences.